A very good evening and welcome to News Watch, this 26th day of September 2022. Thank you so much for joining us for the latest news making headlines in the country and across the globe. I'm Tony Omondi and our sign language interpreter. Tonight is Boniface Murithi. Let's begin our broadcast. President William Ruto has flagged off relief food to counties affected by the ongoing drought. In his address, Ruto called on counties to adjust their budgets in order to free some resources that can be used to alleviate the suffering of Kenyans in drought-affected counties. The dispatch of relief comes at a time when 23 counties so far have been named to be severely affected by the drought, with high incidences of malnutrition in children and lactating mothers reported. Grace Ongoi begins our broadcast with this report.
Although the drought situation is getting dire, the government is taking measures to help alleviate the suffering of Kenyans living in counties affected by the drought. Even with government efforts, the Council of Governors has called upon the international community, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to intervene and support the government's efforts to combat the ongoing drought. On Monday, President William Ruto flagged off 20,000 bags of rice, 20,000 bags of beans, cooking oil and assorted animal feed to various counties affected by the drought. A similar consignment is expected to be dispatched next week to assist the 3.5 million Kenyans affected by the severe drought.
I have asked the Deputy President to, on a weekly basis, make these consultations possible so that we can monitor as government the steps that are required for us to ensure that no Kenyan dies of hunger as we manage the effects of climate change and as we think on the long-term solutions to this challenge.
On top of dispatching food, President Ruto directed the Ministry of Water to urgently dispatch water to affected counties. Of the 23 counties affected, 10 are in the alarm drought phase.
In the short term, we are working as part of our plan to ensure that we transit our agriculture from rain-fed to irrigation. And in so doing, we are going to be working with the private sector on the delivery of water under our public-private partnership. As I have committed, we are going to work on the law so that we create provision for water purchase agreements.
According to Ruto, it was time county governments made provisions on their budget for additional resources to mitigate the crisis, noting that his government will make more proactive interventions in such situations.
I have also asked the Treasury to work with the counties so that they can favorably consider adjustments of the various interventions that are required to make it much more easy for Kenyans to deal with the current situation.
Council of Governors Chairperson Anne Waiguru, on her part, called on the National Drought Management Authority to speed up dispensation of the Drought Emergency Fund to enable counties to respond appropriately to the crisis.
Through NDMA to fast-track the process of actualizing the Drought Emergency Fund, as well as immediately release the equitable share of revenue due to counties to scale up the humanitarian assistance to the households experiencing severe droughts.
Kenya is among the 3 countries in the Horn of Africa facing severe drought in decades occasioned by the below-average rainfall, which is going into its 5th season. Grace Ongoi for Hope TV News Watch.
As the drought menace continues to bite, Turkana residents are facing the brunt of it, with hundreds going hungry and facing acute water shortage and pasture for their livestock. Speaking after visiting various locations of Kalokol, Kataboy and Keris in Turkana North, officials from Salvation Army, led by Secretary General Lucas Kayumbi, said many residents have become malnourished as a result of the drought. They now want the government and other stakeholders to enhance mitigation efforts and continue to distribute food in the region.
Turkana mzima yuko njaa sana. Lakini leo Mungu amekumbuka sana.
Turkana hiki iko njaa sana na mvua nyeshi Tunasema serikali yetu atuone vizuri kwa chakula. Huko kuna njaa sana. Watu walikuwa wameumia sana. Hata wanyama pia wanaumia. Hakuna nyasi hata ya wanyama.
And we are going to distribute to them food which consists of maize, beans, rice, and even sugar, so that they can be able to go and share with their friends and their relatives, their children who are at home. I have seen this place. I have seen how people are suffering in this area. There is a lot of drought in this place, and they cannot be able to grow any crop that can help them. And therefore, they need support from well-wishers, from churches, from the government, and from any other organization that can be able to think about these friends of ours.
Moving on, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, KNCHR, has applauded the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, for creating and improving its systems over time and creating a robust electoral process in the country. Speaking while releasing the key findings on the 2022 General Election Report, KNCHR Chairperson Roslyn Odede said Kenya has made tremendous strides in electoral matters, noting that there were fewer human rights violations compared to other elections in the country. She, however, pointed out 28 incidents of election malpractices by IEBC officials that range from issuance of more ballot papers to voters to some IEBC officials colluding with politicians during voting exercise.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Monday marked 3 weeks since the Supreme Court of Kenya rendered its judgment on the presidential petition. The Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights have now released findings on the election monitoring and observation on the just concluded elections. In their findings, the Commission discovered that there was a rise in cases of insecurity in parts of Lamu, Garissa, Marsabit, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Mandera, Nakuru, Turkana, and West Pokot, which negatively affected Kenyans' rights to vote and equally affected campaigns.
while the government took measures to enhance security in those areas, the Commission notes that insecurity impedes citizens' democratic rights and the right to vote and be voted for is affected. Further, the rights to association, assembly, movement, and expression are also impacted negatively, and as a result, the Commission noted a reduction in campaign activities in those areas and an increase in criminal cases.
Additionally, the Commission also monitored that there were 28 incidents of election malpractices by IEBC officials, which included issuance of more than one ballot paper to voters and collusion with politicians during the voting exercise.
The affixing of the results form at the polling station facilitates the verification and increases transparency.
KNCHR Chairperson Roslyn Odede also said 33 cases of violence targeting poll centers and officials across the country were witnessed. The cases of violence include misuse of firearms by civilians, physical violence, and destruction of election materials, a matter that Odede noted impacts the integrity of election.
The Commission has consistently spoken out against and continues to decry the violence, intimidation, harassment, threats, and intimidation of election officials. Such conduct impacts the integrity of the process.
At the same time, inflammatory speeches in political gatherings and media, according to the Commission, inflicted fear among its voters. The Commission further noted that in the pre-election period, during campaigns, there was undue influence on voters through distribution of branded relief food and money.
Now, elections are the litmus test for a true democratic political system. Democracy is affected if the will of the people is either bought or manipulated through inducements. The Elections Offences Act prohibits any form of inducement of voters to either attend, participate, or refrain in any political activity. During the monitoring exercise, the Commission documented 193 cases of inducements and undue influence of voters. 182 cases were attributed to the campaign period, while 11 were observed on polling day.
Grace Wangoi for OpTV News Watch.
Investigations by relevant authorities have begun after a building in Kirigiti village, Kiambu town, collapsed, killing 3 people and injuring 6 others. The 3, a mother and her 2 children, were in a house next to the collapsed building when the incident occurred. Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi, who visited the site early Monday, called on the police to expedite investigations and arrest the contractor who was reported missing.
Ilikuwa mwendo wa saa 12 hivi. Tulikuwa tu tunapita kwa barabara. Tukasikia sauti kubwa na vumbi. Kustukia tu ni nyumba ambayo ilikuwa inajengwa hivi juzi. Ndio ilienda ikaanguka.
What we are saying is simple, very simple, that people must start living up to the responsibilities that they are paid to stand up for in leadership and in ensuring that our people are safe. What we've witnessed here is disastrous. It can't be allowed to happen. That's what I'm saying with a straight face, that we cannot allow that. I've also had a conversation with a police commander here, and I've said it's also not business as usual for our police officers, because we've been requesting them to give us assistance, and I'm fully briefed about that sometimes when enforcement requires that they accompany our officers, sometimes there's laxity.
Now, the Supreme Court has Monday released the detailed full judgment on the presidential election petition that was filed by 9 petitioners and was nullified by the same court. In the judgment that upheld the win of President William Ruto, the Supreme Court has issued 7 recommendations in relation to the corporate governance of the IEBC, election technology and statutory reforms. On corporate governance issues, the Supreme Court said Parliament should consider enhancing statutory and regulatory framework on separate policy and administrative remit of the IEBC. IEBC to effect formal internal guidelines that delineate the policy strategy and oversight responsibility of the chairperson and the commissioners, and develop institutionalized guidelines on how to manage separation of administrative and policy domains, roles of chairperson, commissioner and chief executive officer, other staff and third parties to be clearly set out in both legislative and administrative edicts. On election technology, IEBC recommended that access to servers supporting the transmission and storage of Forms 34A, 34B and 34C be restricted to IEBC staff during the election period. IEBC to ensure servers supporting election and those serving internal administrative work are distinct and separate. On statutory forms, the court recommended the simplification and restructuring of the Form 34A and include a column that accounts for stray ballots and have 1 section for total valid votes. Lastly, the court recommended enactment of specific mechanisms to allow for special voting as contemplated under Regulation 90 of the Election General Regulations 2012. And the International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa have today released a report on the HIV and AIDS status in the country ahead of the conference next year. The report comes amid rising HIV infections among teenagers. In Kenya, about 16,518 adolescent girls and young women aged between 10 and 24 are infected with HIV annually. As of 2021, Kenya had a total of 1.4 million persons living with HIV. As Kennedy Kimani reports, the report indicates that Kenya is one of the sub-Saharan African countries bearing the greatest burden of the HIV epidemic and other sexually transmitted infections. As of 2021, HIV was still the leading cause of death in Africa.
Kenya is one of the sub-Saharan African countries bearing the greatest burden of the HIV epidemic and other sexually transmitted infections. With HIV still the leading cause of death in Africa, the International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa today briefed on the HIV and AIDS status in the country ahead of the conference next year.
How ready is Kenya to host this international conference, especially that we've just come out of an election? We as assessors, have some issues that we've appreciated, that the government is still in transition, but that will not set us back as assessors. There are things that we've appreciated, but yes, there are those that we need to see in place.
Stigmatization is our major issue. It's something that we need to address if we want to get to zero. It's something that we need to address seriously if we want to end AIDS by 2030, according to the SDG agenda. However, we face other issues. Our priorities are not the same in the continent. Some people lack food. Some people are talking about electricity and water, right? But we need to understand that without health, we cannot have the other things. Health is a backbone of all.
The report comes amid rising infection of HIV among teens. In Kenya, about 16,518 adolescent girls and young women aged 10 to 24 are infected with HIV yearly. As of 2021, Kenya had a total of over 1 million people living with HIV.
Kenya has about 1.5 million people living with HIV, and we have the second largest treatment program in Africa, second to South Africa. So indeed, the country has had HIV not only on the technical front, but also a key issue that has been given the political prioritization as an agenda.
The International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa will be held in 2023 in Nairobi. Kennedy Kimani, Hope TV Newswatch, Nairobi.
Right, with that report by Kennedy Kimani, let's take a short break on Newswatch. We'll be back shortly with more stories making headlines in the country. Keep it Hope TV.
Is a space for talented youth between the ages of 18 and 24 years. Can you sing? Can you dance? Wheelchair for a mic or any other performances? The RAF is a chance to showcase your talent in music, dance, poetry, acrobatics, and more, and stand a chance to win 500,000 Kenyan shillings, a recording deal at Hope Studios, and many more prizes. The RAF auditions in Nyeri will be on Thursday, 29th of September 2022. To register, send an SMS starting with #TheRAF with your name, county, and talent to 22232 to get an invite to the auditions happening near you. For more information, please call 0709 861 223. The RAF, identifying talent, inspiring passion.
Let's continue with Newswatch. Now, Mwingi Central Member of Parliament Gideon Mulyungi has called on President William Ruto to ensure gender balance while picking his cabinet members to help him run the government. Speaking to the press, Mulyungi raised concern with unconfirmed reports that the president might pick some of members of parliament as cabinet secretaries. He now wants the president to be considerate and ensure there is regional balance in the appointments.
During his campaign period, the president promised women 50-50 cabinet slots. So I'm also requesting the president to also bear that in mind as he prepares his list of cabinet slots. Similarly, there are rumors going around that there is a possibility the president may appoint his cabinet from members of parliament. And therefore, this will automatically cause a by-election. Everybody is aware that we are experiencing a lot of problems in Kenya due to high cost of living. We are also experiencing a lot of problems because of famine all over the country. For example, in my constituency, I've lost 3 people due to famine. And therefore, prompting a by-election is going to cost Kenyans a lot of money in conducting the by-elections, considering that the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate resigned to be Speaker. That is another by-election. and that is going to be expensive for Kenyans.
Now, the Commission on Administrative Justice, CAJ, has called on stakeholders, including the Office of the President, Ministry of Labour, the National Employment Authority, NEA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, among others, to implement the Commission's recommendations on migrant workers to Saudi Arabia and other countries to minimize cases of violation of rights of workers. While releasing a systemic investigation report on the plight of Kenyan immigrant domestic workers in Saudi Arabia, the Commission recommended the initiation of a multi-agency working platform in form of an electronic single-window integrated system for all stakeholders to not only ensure the digitization of the recruitment process, but also reduce bureaucracies in the process and promote the credibility of the recruitment and management of domestic workers.
Nikafanya 7 months nyumba ya kwanza. My heart akaenda akapata agent wa Eldoret. Akateka tour, wakatuma watu wa ofisi. Vile watu wa ofisi walikuja, boss wangu alikuwa anataka kushuta watu. Ikaleta fight. Hao watu wakaenda, vile walienda sasa moto ikabaki kwangu. Ilikuwa saa 6 ya usiku, boss akaniita tukaenda dining na yeye. Alikuwa na punduki na SWAT. So akadao namba ya my aunt akaniambia nataka umwambie aunti yako the last word. Naenda kukuua leo. Ilikuwa saa 6:30 ya usiku. Nikaongea na my aunt, nikamwambia my aunt, nikiuawa make sure mwili yangu imefika Kenya kwa sababu mtu naona ataniua. So Mungu wangu tu sijui nani alimpigia simu hiyo time. Nikaona akatoka nje, nilikuwa nimesikia Kiarabu kidogo. Nikasikia tu akisema wacha nitafanya hivyo na sikujua ni nani. Kidogo akarudi akaniambia Rebecca, nataka unifanyie one favor. Kama familia yako inaweza kunilipa pesa yenye ilikutoa Kenya, naomba wanitumie ili nikurelease urudi Kenya. Nikamwambia I'm coming from a poor family. Hatuna chochote.
The government say if a housemaid has a problem in any country, repatriation duty is for recruiters, PRSA or PEA, whatever you call them. Now let me ask you, my worker is to look for a job and to repatriate or is to get Kenyan jobs. My worker is to see every Kenyan who was going loud doing campaigns, waiting for 300 at the end of the day or 50 bob, gets a permanent job. And somebody somewhere is ready to offer this job. The only what is needed from you people, the technocrat, study this job and make sure that our brothers, sisters, our children get this job because somebody is offering that.
Students, they go out there and they completely get lost. Like I know in Western world, there are so many who go there as students, they get stranded, they don't connect well to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the relevant agencies. So they end up getting into destitution. So I think I'm happy to note that the current government has mentioned the issues of diaspora is being taken, given the seriousness that it deserves.
In other news now, members of parliament have been challenged to come up with creative ways of funding development projects and stop lamenting over constituency's development fund, CDF. Retired Bishop of Maseno West Anglican Diocese, Joseph Otieno Wasonga, said the recent Supreme Court ruling declaring CDF unconstitutional should be a wake-up call to legislators to reach out to development partners that have taken part in development projects. Wasonga was speaking at Nyawara Girls High School grounds in Central Game during the official launch of the TG Foundation.
We know that in the political arena, the MPs are pushing for CDF to continue and be reinstated, but work does not have to stop because the CDF is not there, because the work of leaders is to coordinate and mobilize resources, which they could do from our people in diaspora, in the Eastern Africa region, in Africa, and even in the world. We have so many people from Game, from Siaya, and from Nyanza who would want to support development initiative. And that is where we call on our political leaders to join with other leaders in the community to push forward development work.
We have people in the diaspora, we have people in urban centers, we have people who want to come back home and help. But more often than not, they're looked at as political competitors. So we want to provide them a platform where they could send something in a foundation. And I think it is most important that a child go to school than a politician being comfortable that he is feeling his space is being occupied. So I think I need to say that because I'm seeing a lot of unease with this foundation. I don't know why, because we have now about 5 to 10 million shillings in the foundation that people of goodwill, I am a member of Nyukwa Yoga Association as a chair, people have pumped in money there. So I'm saying that any child from Game who does not have school fees for this coming third term should not be sent home because of school fees.
Let's now look at what is happening across our borders. Medical interns at Uganda's Mubende Hospital have gone on strike, accusing the government of not providing them with appropriate safety kit, risk allowances and health insurance. The hospital, located some 150 kilometers from the capital, Kampala, is hosting the main isolation center for Ebola patients as the outbreak continues to spread in the central region. All 34 interns, including doctors, pharmacists and nurses, said in a statement that they would not return to work and want to be evacuated to safer working conditions. 6 intern medical workers are said to have been exposed to the virus and are currently in isolation awaiting laboratory results. Authorities say there have been at least 36 suspected Ebola cases, although not all have been confirmed. At least 23 deaths are suspected to have been caused by the virus. And in Russia, a gunman has opened fire at a school in central Russia, killing at least 15 people and injuring 24. The victims include 11 children at the school of about 1,000 pupils in the city of Izhevsk. The gunman killed himself at the scene and was a former pupil of the school. Videos posted online showed panic inside the building where the shooting took place, with children and adults running along corridors. 13 children and 4 adults were killed, including 2 security guards and 2 teachers, according to Russia's investigative committee. All but 2 of the 24 injured people were children. Staff and pupils have been evacuated from the school building, which is in central Izhevsk, a city of about 650,000 residents. A mourning period lasting until 29th September has been announced by the head of the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he is deeply mourning the deaths and denounced the shooting as an inhuman terrorist attack.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
The RAF is a space for talented youth between the ages of 18 and 24 years. Can you sing? Can you dance? Wheelchair for a mic or any other performances? The RAF is a chance to showcase your talent in music, dance, poetry, acrobatics and more, and stand a chance to win 500,000 Kenyan shillings, a recording deal at Hope Studios, and many more prizes. The RAF auditions in Nyeri will be on Thursday, 29th of September 2022. To register, send an SMS starting with #TheRAF with your name, county, and talent to 22232 to get an invite to the auditions happening near you. For more information, please call 0709 861 223. The RAF, identifying talent, inspiring passion.
Welcome back to Newswatch. Let's continue with some business. Traders in the country have been allowed to clear their cargo at the port of Mombasa and choose the mode of transport to Nairobi and other ideal locations after the Kenya Ports Authority KPA reverted custom services to the coastal city in line with President William Ruto's directive. In a notice, KPA quashed the 2018 decree banning the nomination of cargo to Mombasa and compulsory use of the standard gauge railway for ferrying cargo. Meanwhile, the Shipper Council of Eastern Africa SCEA Chief Executive Gilbert Langat said the notice has ended confusion on the implementation of the presidential directive. Cargo transporters in 2018 had been protesting the directive by former President Uhuru Kenyatta to ferry their goods to Nairobi or Naivasha via the SGR for onward clearance, saying it had raised the cost of doing business. And Qatar Airways has been named the Airline of the Year by the International Air Transport Rating Organization, Skytrax, for an unprecedented seventh time, even as it celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. At a glittering event in London earlier this past weekend, the leading global airline also took home 3 additional awards, including World's Best Business Class, World's Best Business Class Lounge Dining, and Best Airline in the Middle East. The prestigious 2022 Skytrax Awards are coveted within the industry due to their reputation as the benchmark of excellence and distinction. Qatar Airways Group Chief Executive Akbar Al-Bakr said to be named as the world's best airline was always a goal when Qatar Airways was created, but to win it for the 7th time and pick up 3 additional awards is a testament to all the hard work the employees have put in. And some sports news now. Eliud Kipchoge won the 2022 Berlin Marathon in a world record time of 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds on Sunday, with the finish being 30 seconds faster than his previous world record of 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds set in 2018. Kipchoge's victory was his 4th in Berlin and 17th overall in a career of 19 marathons starts, including 2 on non-record eligible demo races. Mark Korir of Kenya was 2nd, with Tadu Abate of Ethiopia coming in 3rd.
Under the famous arches of the Brandenburg Gate, built in 1791, the crowds are going crazy. It's history unfolding here on the streets of Berlin in the sunshine. The double Olympic champion is the greatest marathon runner we have ever seen in the history of the event. This is road running from a different planet here in Berlin. Yet again, he has done it. The world record is gone, and now he can celebrate. And that is simply stunning.
I was planning to go to it with a 60-50, 60-40, but all in all, my legs were running actually very fast. And I thought, let me just try to run 2 hours flat. But all in all, I'm happy with the performance. Actually, the start, I think the first half was really very fast. And we went too fast, and you need to actually, it takes energy from the muscles. Absolutely, still more, in my legs are still more, and I hope future is still great.
Evans Murumba beat a team of 220 golfers to claim the Hackers title during the 4th annual Hackers Golf Tournament played at the Par 71 Nyali Golf and Country Club course in Mombasa County. Playing off handicap 28, Murumba returned a score of 35 points to emerge the ultimate hacker in the day-long 18-hole Stable Ford tournament organized by the Hackers Union and staged after a 2-year absence following the COVID-19 pandemic. Immediate Mombasa golf captain Lawrence Odhiambo, playing off handicap 13, was the first hacker winner on a 2-way countback score of 34 points. The event's overall winner was handicap 21 Kailesh Chauhan on 39 points, beating handicap 23 Sam Muraya to the men's winner slot by a single point, while handicap 11 Fahmi Hamid on 37 points and handicap 22 Nilesh Patel were the runners-up and 3rd placed respectively.
Our slogan is, "You shall never hack alone," simply because high handicappers can never make it to the Kenya Open. You have to be a very low handicapper. We made our own tournament and said the Hackers Tournament is for basically anyone who can never make it to the Kenya Open. But we've brought a wide field of players. This is the 4th tournament. It's gaining popularity every year. Last year, after the COVID, we had around 130 people. This year, there's a big turnout, 220 people, some from Nairobi. And for the first time, we have anchor sponsors. We have Rentco among them, a leading asset finance company.
The game of golf is important. A lot of times it's seen as an elite sport, but it's not really an elite sport. Because if you look at the big names which have made it to the world stage, not all of them came from privileged backgrounds. And the game of golf is transformative in terms of the global viewership it commands. And for Kenya, it's particularly important because Kenya is now hosting the Kenya Open, which is a DP European Tour event. And this is a big deal. If you look at the amount of money, the amount of sponsorship, the amount of branding, and the amount of FDI that comes into Kenya, even in terms of our tourism and our exposure as a country, it is priceless.
And Trent Alexander-Arnold has not been included in England's squad as Gareth Southgate's side prepare to face Germany at Wembley tonight. England have not been in their best form, and the 5-game winless run is their longest since 2014. Tonight's clash with Germany remains key for England in terms of improving the mood and rebuilding confidence in their final match before the World Cup begins. Other fixtures slated for tonight are Macedonia versus Bulgaria, Montenegro versus Finland, Hungary versus Italy, Romania versus Bosnia, and San Marino versus Estonia. Well, that marks the end of this live broadcast on Hope TV News Watch tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow, same time. Thank you for watching. I'm Tony Omondi, and our sign language interpreter has been Boniface Murithi. Have a good night and God bless.